Now let's display some of the objects. Don't need to display this one, but just know that it is here. And for the delete, I don't even need to display it, and I will look at it later. But what I need to display is the container and the door and the frame down. That's it. And I can color this object blue because it will be the water. So now I know exactly where's the water. And let's start by creating Hybrido. This is the Hybrido. And I can just move it a little. Let's just scale it. It's better to have it almost covering the area of the water. Not for any consideration now, because it doesn't matter really. The position or the scale of this icon doesn't matter. But later, when we do the displacement for the surface, for the mesh, also if we want to trim the mesh, it does work really well. It just helps us to do that. And to know exactly where's the level of water down, this is the upper level. Down level, I will display everything in wireframe, and I will unhide the delete. Delete is here, means below this is solid, no water will come. So I will increase the height here. Later, if I will use this icon as a clipping object, it will clip the water from this level. For now, I don't need really to care about it. So I will hide the delete. Press 9 on the keyboard to see everything in shaded mode. Now, I need to create an emitter. The domain water is the emitter, and I can just choose it and go here to emitter, and I have emitter now. And let's just go again and do the same thing we did with the beach project. Now the domain and the water is already connected, and RealFlow will consider that, but let's be careful because now the domain is a solid object and it will collide with other kind of particles, not with the domain, because RealFlow will understand that, but with splash as example or foam. So before we start doing anything, let's go here, disconnect it from the hub, and just put it here. Now let's leave it active because we need it to be active, and we have everything we need to start seeing the water. I will hide this object, I don't need to see it. And let's just start simulating something. Let's press simulate. For the first frame, it will take some time because it's just generating everything from scratch. For the other frames, it will be faster. But now, let's just see what, yeah, this is it. This is the domain. And if I press on the domain here, I will see we have 668,000 almost particles, and they are exactly where we need them to be. But we have a problem here, which is this section, because if you look at the delete object, the delete object is not allowing the particles from growing down. That's really good, but we don't have anything here, and I mentioned that in the 3D file, to just kill these. What I can do is that I can hide the delete and create a cube here, small cube. And let's see, where's the cube? Here it is. Let's make it bigger. And let's bring it here. I can just make it bigger a little. Position it just in this area. Even I can rotate it a little to make sure that it's just, sorry, covering the area I need it to cover. And that's it. If I will recreate everything again, reset, simulate, the amount of particles we have now is really small. But it's good to test everything and see if everything working. Anyway, I will just increase it a little to make sure that we have enough particles. Now, if you look at it, because this is automatically described here like a solid inside, means everything inside it will be killed. It doesn't allow the particle to grow inside solid object. That means I have the particles wherever I need them to be. And if you notice, it's just above the level here. Why? Because it's just surrounded by the frame up, if you remember, that will prevent them from going anywhere. That's good now, and we have everything we need. What we can do now, change a few numbers and start the simulation. Because we want to speed up things, let's change a few things. Let's hide everything we don't want to see, like this. And let's change a few things. If I will go to the wheel itself and see here, it's really small, which gonna consume some time. So I will go to 0.1, let's say 6 as example, or even 9, 0.2, something. Let's see how it looks. I think this is nice now for the test. And maybe I have to push it a little more out. So what I can do is that I can go here and just change this 002 as example. That's good. That's a good representation for the whale. I can do the same here. I will leave this, but I will go to the tongue and the same number I will put 0.019. Let's see if that's good also. For the whale, I will hide the ISO and I will hide it. And for this one, let's display the ISO. And I think it's good. That's really good. So that's enough for us now when we're working in the low resolution simulation. And for the domain, let's look at the number of particles. It's like almost 700,000 or 650 something. So what I can do is that I can decrease this number to have more particles. Why I'm doing this? It looks like these particles, the amount of particles are enough here, but actually it's not enough. For this huge amount of this big distance or this area or this volume, we need a lot of more than this amount of particles. I would say 1 million, 2 millions are good. Then we can increase that when we upres everything, because now if you will have the simulation start simulating everything, the whale gonna jump, but we will not find or see a good representation for the splash. That's so critical. Don't go low and don't go really high, but go in the middle ground. So what I will do here, I will change this into 0. Let's say 2, 1 something. Just two numbers, it doesn't matter. That's good. And I will simulate the first frame to see how much particles we have. Now, after that, after I will have the particles, I will start looking at the other parameters here. Just wait a little and we should see something. And don't forget to, we need to add the gravity also. We need to add some drag, but let's stop the simulation. We have almost 2 millions, which is good. Good start. And I think this would be enough for us. And we can also save this actually. What I can do is that I can save this. So in the first frame, I don't need to always wait for reflow to simulate this frame because it takes time more than the other frames. So how can I do that? Just go to no here, make it yes, and make initial state. If I will go here, open the project files, I will have one file created here, which is in two extensions, because automatically the first thing before I play with the export central for the domain itself, Reflow will export two extensions with the displacement texture. But now these are the ones I need, VDB and RBC. RBC to display it in the viewport. VDB is a volumetric presentation for it for other users. It contains all the information about the velocity and other information. So for now, I can go here and I can reset initial state. So whenever I reset everything, it will go to the initial state, which is this one. So it doesn't make it empty, and I can start always from here. That's good. Now let's see what other parameters for the domain and explain a few things. If I will go down here, I have viscosity. Viscosity is like, I always look at it as the inner drag for the water between the particles. So it slows the particles movement. It makes it difficult for the particles to cross each other or just to walk between each other. Means that it will apply some kind of resistance inside the liquid. So if I will increase this number, I will get something like honey or chocolate or something more solid than the water. But for the water, 0 is really good, and this is the number we will not change. For the density, is the density of the water, which is 1000 kilograms per meter cubic, which is exactly that. I will not change it. For conserved volume, there was a usual problem, which is actually there, but it's not noticeable now with the new flip solvers, but it's most of the fluid solvers, the flip solvers, which is like Hybrido here, they lose some of their volumes during the simulation. And that's why we can just activate this one and have the water not losing some of its volume. But recently I don't have this problem, or I didn't see it, and I don't want to spend more time here, and so I will not activate this one. So post verticity post, it will create some swirls, and it's just really make a good noise pattern for the water movement later. So I will just change it to any number. Later we can watch this number and change it. For the track lonely particles, I would say yes. Means if I will have a simulation and some of the particles will jump randomly out of what I expect them to jump, individual particles, I need the real flow to take care of that thing and kill it. Actually, I don't want it to live and for this time, so I can describe the minimum time for it to live and the maximum time. Why minimum and maximum? Because sometimes it jumps, then it join other particles, or the other particles jumps behind it. So it's actually right. It's not wrong. So I will give it a chance. And this is in seconds, I think. So I can just go 0.1 and 0.3. That's enough. So let's go down here for the min sampling control. If I will just activate this. So real flow 8 is 8 particles in every voxel. So automatically real flow will make sure that the minimum amount of particles for every cell is 8. And we will know why 8 later, but in general, this is the number, and I can increase it or decrease it. Anyway, if it's less than 8 particles per cell, real flow will create another particle, but it will not be actually a part of the simulation. It will just fill the gap. Anyway, you don't care. You don't need to go through these. You just leave them on, and you can leave them off actually, and it will not affect the simulation. But I will just leave them as they are. They will take some time to calculate anyway. So for the verticity and for the normal, I can activate these and I can export them with everything, but actually I don't need them here in this course. Sometimes you need to shade the surface of the water based on the verticity, which is actually nice, and it has applications. But for now, I don't really need to use this. For the ocean statistical spectrum, we went through that, and we will go again through it later, but it's always good to find the parameters and press always, then simulate before we simulate anything. So when we will have the mesh, we can just use the numbers we will have here. Now what we will do is we will add here, we will add gravity, and I will leave it like 0.98 as it is, and I will add drag. I always add these two. You can reduce them, you can change them, but at least they present the gravity and the air resistance. And for this one, I will leave it as it is also. So I have everything ready now, and I can start simulating things. We can start the simulation by going here to simulate, and I will simulate it using the command line because it will be really faster. So I will go down, it's trimmed in your screen, but it says command line, and that will just activate this icon, which is the command line, let's say window, and I will start the simulation. Now it will take some time, but for some reason it's so fast, there is something wrong about it. So what I will do now, I will close the window and I will check what's wrong. Here in the command option, I will check and it says none. So what I need to do is to just bring it to reset, which is just taking reset into consideration and start simulating based on that. Let's do it again. Now we have the simulation running right. It will start from here and will continue. Just let's comment about a few things before we finish the simulation. Now we will have the whale jumping, and I will just hide this, and colliding with the water. But what you will notice is that the interaction between the whale and the water is not really defined. It will act by its own based on the parameters here, but we didn't really define the relationship between the whale and even the eyes and the tongue and the water. What we can do is that we can select the whale and check for the hybrid interaction. These parameters are so important and they define how the whale is interacting with the water. What we can do is that if you look here, you will find the grid friction is 0. So there is no friction between the water and the whale. Means when the whale will come out of the water, it will not just hold some of the water with it, which is not realistic totally. And for the friction bandwidth, we described that before, but again, let's just talk about it. So if there is a friction between the whale and the water, it has a distance, means after this amount of meters, which is 0.2, 20 centimeters, the effect of friction will disappear. So the particles will not feel any of the friction, but there's an area which, even if the particle is far away from the whale, like 10 centimeters, it will feel this friction. And the last one is the interaction factor. This is the most important factor. If we will increase this number, and the interaction between the whale and the water will be obvious, and you will see the whale pushing the water. If we will decrease this number, it will just go smooth from the water and it will just push the water around. So controlling these numbers is actually what gonna define the simulation shape. Other than that, let's go to the emitter. I mentioned that we will talk about how much particles we have in every voxel or cell here, and that can be defined by the emitter. So if we will check here, we have option to do stream, means that we'll be always generating from this object, which is the domain water. But we, in this case, no, we need just a certain amount of particles to be steady, and we want the well to collide with it. But if you move here, you will see that we have surface particle sampling, and we have also core particle sampling. These two are presenting the volume of the water. So if I will see the water here, real flow automatically will separate this volume into two sections. One of them is the core, which is inside the volume, and the other one it's the surface. And this technique will be really useful sometimes because you need to separate between the two, and sometimes to increase the resolution in the surface and to decrease it down in the core. That what we can do here. And to define the distance, or let's say how big is the surface area, this is the number. It's 10 centimeters, means the surface bandwidth. So 2 means 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2. It's like 8 particles per cell. This is how we can increase the number of particles without going here and reducing the size of the cell. This is another way of how we can increase the particles number. Jittering is the number which keeps the randomization here, so we don't have really regular shape with the particles lined in lines or something. We have really a good amount of randomization for them, which is nice and realistic. Other than that, we can export whatever we want here, but also we can go always to the central and make sure that we are exporting the right kind of particles. In this case, I don't really need to export the particles except to visualize them here and to have their parameters. So if I will stop in some frame, I can resume from that frame because basically I have the velocity saved. That's so important. So when we, at the beginning of the simulation, we saved or we just saved the initial state for this liquid, it didn't just save the particles volume or their position, it saved all these parameters, or even we can see them here: position, velocity, texture if there's any, verticity or normal if I activated them but I didn't, ID and radius and emitter ID. All these information are stored with this one. So if there is a wave here as example in the beginning of the simulation, when we run the simulation it will continue moving because already we have the information. Now that's what we need to know about hybrido particles. Again, I mentioned that before. The kind of particles here is hybrid, which is flip solver and which is different from SPH and other kind of particles. It's revolutionary and it's one of the best. And the idea behind it is that we have a field, which is basically the cell size. You know, it defines the field. If you see it here, this is the cell size, the smallest part, which contains small amount of particles. And the difference between the hybrid or the flip solver and the traditional fluid system, like the fluid system in Maya as example, is that we have particles inside these cells, and these particles are carrying some part of the information. So when they move, they actually have the information inside of them. There's information that's inside the cell, and there's information inside the particle, and that will really enhance the solution. It's just a little mathematical thing, but for now, this is all you need to know. Let's see now, we have 18, 21 frames, I will stop the simulation and I will see what we have. We can just press this button to update the timeline. Let's just move a little and see how the wheel is interacting with the water. This is nice. Actually, I should let it go more. So what I will do is that I will stop the video and I will do more frames and come back after a few minutes when we have more to see and analyze. I have some frames now. Actually, I simulated until 58. I updated the timeline and let's see what we have. If I will jump to 18, where the wheel started going out from the water. That's so nice. But, and here I care about this curve actually. This is so important. The wheel is big. We can see it here small because we just, we see a part of the simulation, but the wheel is big means when it comes out from the water, it should take a huge amount of water with it. And actually they should be attached to it to a certain time, especially with his hands. I need to see the trails coming out. So let's jump to 31. That's nice, but it's just disconnecting, which is not right. I need that to just go with it to a certain time or height. Let's go to 50. And remember, we didn't change anything here in the friction. There's no friction between the water and the wheel, which is not elastic at all. We should have some friction. If we will jump to 58, which is the last frame I simulated here, we will see that we don't have any of these particles attached to the wheel, which is not elastic at all. Actually, the particles which should go out with the wheel, they are the ones which will form very interesting splash. And when we add splash and foam and everything later, it will be really interesting. Now in this frame, I expect the water to be dripping from here a lot, huge amount of water. Also here some water, but I can't see any. So what we need to do is to change these numbers. So let's go to friction and we can add any number. I can say, okay, let's start with 0.2 as example. I don't want to increase it much. And here 0.3. And I will keep just this one, the interaction, because I feel it's pushing the water in a good way. But the idea here is that I need to have some good numbers here, which gonna give me the right interaction I need. Also, let's take something in consideration. Now it's coming out. When it goes in, I need to keep the water in a certain area because I don't want it to splash out. Remember, this is supposed to be a table. So I need the splash to be huge, but not much. So that's why I can animate this factor, the interaction factor between here and there. But now I'll keep it as it is and I will reset everything and I will try to see what we will get with these numbers. Simulate and I will come back after the simulation ends.